Where did the Plushies begin, and how did they become one of the most powerful nations there is? Find out now in this Plush history documentary. It all begins with our founder, Frederick the Bonehead. There are many reasons why he was called the Bonehead, as he was very stupid, that's for sure. In 1094, Frederick the Bonehead, who's from Blackpool, England, ended up being banished from the land in 1094. He was banished by being thrown out into the sea, and unbelievably, he somehow missed the lands of Greenland, Canada, the North Pole, which is also kind of Canada, Alaska, and Russia. He managed to squeeze in between there into a land in the Pacific Ocean. When he found it, the 36-year-old in 1099 landed on the land that we know today. He named it Fredland, which is not a creative name, but he wasn't known for his intelligence. He eventually started sneaking British citizens to the land by boat. Out of 4,372 people that he brought in, only 38 made the sail all the way to Fredland in 1103. Frederick was certainly a bonehead. Nobody really ever had respect for him either. Everyone hated him from what we know, and it's crazy that he's the founder and no one even likes him. I've heard that he got into an argument when shipping, when trying to get a bunch of those British people all the way across to the country, and he got into an argument with one of them, and then he just threw him overboard for no reason. I don't know how true that is, but I'm gonna believe it. That is such a stupid name, and I'm really happy that it got changed. Because, yeah, I would not live here with if the country was named like that. It's a terrible name. Frederick declared himself king for obvious reasons, and in that same year, he started his rule, which he ran like a circus. Frederick never had kids because he thought that was lame and not swag. That is real quotes said by Frederick the Bonehead himself. The now 796 population celebrated his death on March 15th. 1131, his 68th birthday, which is now celebrated as our country's Independence Day. You know, it's crazy that it's considered Independence Day, but I celebrate it. It's a nice excuse to have a pint without anyone judging me for it. I'd have it anyways, but I can have it a little more freely on Independence Day, so I actually like the day. But some people find it a little weird that we our Independence Day is essentially celebrating someone's death, but, it is what it is. It was, about 900 years ago, at this point, so can't really break tradition now, I guess. The first monarchy officially ended, and the country was unruled without any real or official government. During its population rise, newborn babies were noticeably changing. In some weird phenomenon, some of them started to get stuffing instead of blood. And still to this day, scientists don't quite know how this even happened. Some alien experts think it might have been something to do with aliens. Others believe it could be related to climate or even their harsh culture and their tendencies to fall from tall heights and barely move for prolonged periods of time. Regardless, that's what's made us Plush today, and we still don't really have a true answer on why that is the way we function. It's a very interesting thing about us, that's for sure. Why did that even happen? I know one thing, and it's definitely not aliens, but, it's still crazy that it happened. There's not really any evidence, but, yeah, I think it's aliens.
No, it isn't.
What? Yes, seen it! No one really knew what to call us. In a way, we could be even its own new species with so many changes. No one even knew if we should be a species or a race. Everything was up for debate about that. Some suggested a name Stuffy, others went for a name with stuffed animals. But the question would be answered 2 decades later, in 1215, the scariest moment in the country's history, up until that point, of course. Someone else discovered that land, and that being the Mongol Empire. In a very scary moment, Genghis Khan, who led the Mongols in that time, one of the most feared, greatest war generals there's ever been, discovered this land. And led by him, Genghis Khan built a comically large bridge from southeast Russia all the way to the mainland. 33,652 Mongols started crossing that bridge to attack subscribed country without any leader or any real army. We looked doomed. But there was one man saved the country. And his name is Joe Plush, just a 21-year-old man who had nothing better to do and notoriously disappointed his parents. He had nothing to lose and decided to take on the army all by himself. The Mongol Empire did not anticipate that Joe Plush was goaded with the mace. They were unfamiliar with his game. When his mace broke after the 700th victim, he resorted to his fists and killed another 9,316 of the Mongols. Realizing this guy had way too much plot armor, the Mongols fled and unbuilt the comically large bridge and pretended like nothing happened. Joe Plush officially won the war 6 weeks later and immediately was worshipped, and the species ended up being named after him, and now we are all referred to as Plush. Fredland also got renamed to Plushilia. Countless statues were built, and Joe Plush became considered king for life. Some also nicknamed him the Plush to represent that he could never be topped. Joe Plush, man, what a legend. What a legend, that's all I gotta say. I mean, we owe a lot to that guy, that Plush, as you will. Man, you know, I'll never get over the fact that this one man was able to defeat one of the strongest armies that's ever been on this planet, and without that, we would not be here today. No way we'd be here today. It truly is incredible, and some people say that we kind of honor him too much in this land, but how can we not after doing something like that? Sometimes I wonder, you know, what would happen if he didn't do all that? Because, I mean, yeah, that could have been a very big loss for sure. You know, the country's didn't really set up a proper army by that point, and the Mongols could have just taken us over, but this guy had something a little better to do, you know. Man, someone should be different right now, that's for sure. Plushilia officially created the second monarchy. Due to these events, Joe Plush lived due to these events. Joe Plush ended up living for a very long time, as now the king. Straightening the fact that he's also goated, he outlived his own son, Joey, by 9 years. Joe Plush died on September 28th, 1302, at 108 years old, a truly incredible age to make it to in that time. His birthday, January 23rd, is one of the most celebrated days in the country's history. Joe's grandson, 35-year-old Konstantinos Plush, became the new king. He didn't do a lot, and he also died on June 6th, 1315, at the age of 80. There are many other monarchs that came and went throughout many years, as monarchies tend to do, and throughout history, there was still some reminiscences as well of Frederick the Bonehead causing issues within the country. For example, the second monarchy actually technically ended after John Frederickson, the cousin of Frank, got denied of his spot as king in the new house due to the similar name to Frederick the Bonehead. He was eventually given his spot, but there was a lot of tension just because someone had a similar name to Frederick. But the third house started. John Frederickson, also now known as John I, ended up dying in battle against a turkey. Not the country, a literal turkey. Historians still don't know exactly how that could have happened, but the records show that he died to a turkey. But that's not the only monarch with a crazy death. James II, who took the throne at age 29, shockingly ended up getting ligma and died after a 3-year battle at the age of 39. The very next monarch, Bob I, ended up dying in battle against the British, being 63 years old. In 1537, Russia attempted to invade Plushilia. The war only lasted 2 years, but in the summer of 1539, the temperatures got too high for the Russians, having 7 different days above 6 degrees Celsius. Russia fled on August 14th, 1539. The British also went to war with Plushilia on February 11th, 1697. King William III ordered the British troops to try to take Plushilia, and they could have if it wasn't for the absolute genius that was King George II of Plushilia. He put a massive top on top of the entire country and got his army to play it off as if there was nothing there, and it worked. They killed the 4,000 British troops and eventually won the war 4 months later, on December 18th, 1697. You know, the top tactic was a very important part of our history as well. I mean, The British looked like they were in control of the war, but it completely turned the tides when King George II did that plan and put the entire land on the top. And it's insane because, the land size of this place is pretty big. Like, I don't think we're too far off about the size of Argentina. So the fact he was able to put a top on so quickly, it's, a brilliant war tactic, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, we could have won the war faster if we ate some spinach. But, we still won, so I guess we didn't really need it. Can we move on?
The final monarch house ended up entering in 1717. The population now is 786,000, preferred an elected leader and government rather than a pre-chosen monarchy making all the decisions. But the White House, what White's the last name, becomes the last Plushies monarchy. And it started with King Walter, who ended up getting assassinated on June 21st, 1724 by a peasant. But in recent time, scientists went back to study the death of King Walter, and it shows that he could have been killed by an undiagnosed cancer. The king had health struggles related to his final years. Some suggest that pro-monarch civilians might have messed with the records to make anti-monarchs look bad. Another king, being Michael II, ended up dying in battle when he fought France, January 17th, 1742. But the controversies of the monarchy only grew as Bob II, when he took the throne, when he became king, he was killed by his own brother on August 16th, 1743. At that point, his brother James III ended up taking over as king, but was removed on October 11th, 1743, after reasonable suspicion suggests that he poisoned his predecessor, also known as his brother. He ended up being convicted on December 6th of that year, and was officially publicly on April 12th, 1744.
The whole James III thing is, a bit of a controversial one, for sure. The fact that the country just kind of moved on and made him king before it was found out what he did, it's not a good look. The only real thing we can say in defense that, it's the mid-1700s, so they had to execute our own former king. It's a whole thing, for sure.
A couple more monarchs down, Queen Mary, who took over the throne at 33, ended up dying after falling in a bottomless pit that the British set up on March 16th, 1783. We still don't quite know how they managed to set up a bottomless pit, albeit on our own land, but they were successful regardless. I guess that's what happens when the British Empire is at their peak. After a while, the anti-monarchs kinda died down in popularity. Most people starting to be a little more okay with the monarchy system again. But that was until King Mark took the throne after Queen Mary in 1783. This guy was so bad and lived for so long, which caused a lot of people to hate the monarchy again. At one point in his tenure, King Mark went to hiding for 8 months from the public because of all the controversy around him on the throne.
King Mark certainly was really bad from what history shows and whatnot, and it's insane. I never had to go in hiding for 8 months, or for any time period, in fact. So, you really have to be bad at your job if you have to disappear for 8 months so that people stop being so mad at you, that's for sure. Honestly, I'm really surprised that the monarchy didn't just end with Mark. He was so bad, he just completely changed everyone's opinions on the monarchy again. People are, finally starting to come around to it again, and it's like, maybe if Mark was actually a good king, perhaps the whole monarchy system could have gone even for another 100, maybe 200 years. Maybe we'd still be in one right now, but he could be responsible why we don't have one anymore. It's crazy.
With his death finally happening on Halloween of 1838, which wasn't very spooky because it wasn't a holiday yet, King Joe III became the final monarch. He was born on May 21st, 1801, taking over at 37. And for years, there were many protests against him. But Joe III didn't want to give up such a high power. But he struggled to have any kids, and he knew he couldn't let a new house in with so much tension. So he officially ended the monarchy on February 16th, 1845. He himself lived 91 years and died on August 14th, 1892. I very much do admire Joe III. He went from being a pretty hated person when he was king, to being one of the most liked people around in the country's history because, well, he ended the monarchy and gave us, like, democracy-type rule and allowed people to vote. I mean, he even tried to run for president himself, but, you know, he lost. Not all that surprising, to be honest, but the fact of the matter is that he still technically had the power. He could have overruled it. He had to bring a successor in, George Stuffington, and he could have just overruled. He could have made some corruption, and he let him become president. He actually kept his word, and it's, you know, an incredible comeback story. You love to see it. On April 6th, 1843, the United States of America ended up going to war with Plushies. After a lot of battling, the Americans' big downfall ended up being greed. They decided to also go to war with Mexico, and to get more troops, James K. Polk, the US president at the time, ended the war on February 24th, 1845. We take these dubs here in Plushies because it's another plush win. In 1846, Joe III, who was now Joe White, came up with some electoral rules for a electoral democracy. The rules were, at this point in time, you had to be 18 years old to vote, or to even run for president itself. A term lasts for 4 years, and as long as you get elected, you can have as many terms as possible. Most total votes wins. Election voting starts on the first week of December and ends on the 2nd, where the results are revealed. The 4th of January is when power is passed on, and the 3 days leading up to it is for preparations and ceremonies. Some of the earlier political parties of the country were the Plush Party, the Plush Workers' Party, the Farmers' Party, the Yoshi Rights Party, the Monarchy Party, and the Freedom Party. At this point, the population was only at 4.8 million, and over 1 million were unable to vote, so the voting size was relatively small. 1846 was won by a well-known person in the country. George Stuffington of the Plush Party won. He was one of the main people calling for the end of the monarchy. He even won re-election in 1850 and even planned on running again, but he ended up quickly dropping out for his 3rd term after a big scandal came out that he doesn't properly wash his horse carriage, which completely ruined his political career. That was when he was replaced in 1854 by Bob Jones of the Plush Workers' Party, giving better and safer opportunities for industrial workers. He ended up narrowly losing in 1858 to Yoshi Rights Party leader Franz Yosherman, who was born on July 13th, 1817, and he died on June 23rd, 1864. Yosherman got re-elected in 1862, and then he was assassinated while at a puppet play. He was shot in the back of the head by John Wilkes Coops, a 31-year-old puppeteer who hated what was going on in his country. He's a racist, and shot the president. 8 weeks later, they found him and stomped on him. However, since he is a turtle, when he was stomped on, he went into his shell. He ended up ricocheting off a pipe and fell down a cliff and died. It was unfortunate because they wanted to give him the death penalty, but he essentially got it too early and not the way they wanted.
You know, something doesn't get talked about too much anymore in history, but yeah, Franz Yosherman, he had a very big deal. He inspired so many people. He managed to give much better life to Yoshis all around, and even more than that is because of his election and how successful he was with this turnaround is what eventually led to Toads having more, and hell, even Goombas are getting a bit more. And although they're already kind of in a good spot, I mean, even some Koopas have been, you know, having better treatment. At the time, many people saw it as just only helping Yoshis, and he was very controversial. You know, half people hated him, half people loved him, but really, in the long run, I would say helped really everyone, in a way, which is incredible. I think we can all learn a lot from someone like him, and yeah, probably one of my favorite people historically, Franz Yosherman, true legend, that's for sure. The assassination was, you know, truly a shock. I mean, there's been 2 other presidents, and you know, nothing like this ever even came close. And to be fair, there has been a couple of kings that have been assassinated, but like pretty much all those instances came from them being in a battle. So it's like, well, it happened, but I mean, it's to be expected. Yoshimitsu just minding his own business. I mean, yeah, it really set the tone on how dangerous the job could be, that's for sure.
John Wilkes Coops, you know, he could have gotten away. He really could have. It's not documented quite as good as his death. for obvious reasons, so many people hate him. They don't want to give him any real chance, I guess I could say. But he actually could have gone away. But there was some Mario music playing. And every time it got to that beat, he had to stop in place and do a little dance. If it wasn't for the music playing, he probably could have gone away from the authorities. So they don't seem to document that too well, but that is something that could have happened, you know? Yeah, but instead, he was bested by the Toons. Ho Chi Minh's vice president came in. As you know, if someone dies in office, their vice president takes over. Ho Chi Minh's was John Baines O'Neill, who took over and became the 4th president. But that's not even the craziest story, because the person that would take over for him in 1870 would be Plush Party's Wilfred Smurf, also known as Papa Smurf, who was born miraculously in 33 BC and somehow is still alive. Don't ask how he's alive, because I couldn't tell you.
It's impressive how old Papa Smurf is, and yeah. I've heard he had like some kind of curse back in like 1 or 2 BC or something like that, where his some witch cursed him to live for thousands of years or something. So his age is super slow. That's kind of why he's still alive. I mean, you think, well, surely he's just only about 80, right? But then you see photographs of him from when he was elected the first time, which is in the mid 1800s. There's like hieroglyphics of him. It's like, how did he get there? This could be aliens. I don't think that's even that crazy this time. I think this actually could just be aliens.
What I could tell you is how he got his nickname. He prefers it to his real name, and in approximately 1720, King Michael II, who at that time was a prince, found out his real age and his lack of looking his age, which at that point would have been close to about 1,700. But he ended up getting the nickname mostly because of his age. There was truly a lot of political parties during this time, which you can see here on screen. But the name we gotta go to should be Richard Hughes, who ended up being elected in 1894 and even won re-election in 1898. At the time, it was controversial to support Toads, and when he ended up supporting the Toads and their party, the Plush Party ended up dropping him as a candidate. Despite being elected twice, he was forced out of the ballot. Because of that, actually led to the Toads Party winning their first election, and that made George Washington Toad the next president. He gave great opportunities to Toads and became a Plush hero. Upon his death, Plushilia recognized the 4th of July as Toad Day, and it's the only big event that happens on the 4th of July. As you all know, it is known as Toad Day. Washington Toad even got re-elected in 1906, but he decided not to run for another term.
Similarly to Franz Ilschman, George Washington Toad really brought a lot to the Toads and really helped change the way Plushilia is. Yep, the 4th of July. That's all it is. It's Toad Day. I can't think of anything else that happens on the 4th of July. Like, what else happens? Like, nothing. Like, who celebrates anything on the 4th of July other than Toad Day? No one. You're lying if you're saying there's something else. Like this, it's Toad Day. It's Toad.
Another big shock, though, came from our 10th president, Plushilia's party leader Albert Denisenko, who became the 10th president, had a pretty decent term in 1910, and looked like he was going to very easily win the next election. But nobody could anticipate in 1914, when Plush Party won again, and Papa Smurf returned to the throne. Not really, it's more like a chair. He's the president now. Papa Smurf was even the president during World War I in 1908, as he won the 1918 election. He didn't run afterward, as he thought he was gonna die soon after he had some health problems, and albeit very old, pretty understandable to think he's gonna die. In 1934, the Plush Party's John de Plushson ended up being re-elected in 1938 and got pretty popular during World War II as Plushilia's president, and went for a third term. And similarly to Franklin D. Roosevelt, he won 1942.
You know, John de Plushson really inspires me. You know, he got me into spinach. Spinach. Man, I like spinach. I don't know if I've made that clear yet, but it's good. It's really good. He had it because, you know, World War II, you know, it's really stressful. So he would eat it because he needs a quick meal, and actually made him stronger and helped during the battles. You know,
And that's when things got a bit hectic. When he ran for his 4th term and won it in 1946. He started getting some backlash for going for his 4th term. There was so much backlash that the Plush then decided not to run for a 5th term. And in 1950, the anti-monarchy party ended up getting a lot of votes. As for the first time since the monarchy ended, people kind of started believing, in a way, it was kind of back. But even more so, because of the anti-monarchy party getting so many votes, the Plush Workers' Party and Plushilius Party, which is a new party that was set up in the last couple decades, which was really popular, ended up losing because of the split of votes between the three parties, led to the Plush Party winning again, with 4-term Vice President Michael Samuelson to win. He ended up getting assassinated by 33-year-old Jerry Fitzgerald, who believed Samuelson was trying to bring back the monarchy in his name. Fitzgerald was sentenced to death and died on April 15th, 1956. Samuel's vice president, Steve Benson, had to take over.
The assassination of Michael Samuelson is a sad one for sure, because he only really had a term, but because he had 4 vice president terms, he just seemed like he was trying to build a monarchy, and that was the big reason for the assassination. John de Plushton had 4 terms, and although I would say in a way some of them are justified for sure because, World War II is happening, but a lot of people believe that he did not need to run in 1946. And in the end of the day, really is his choice. He got the votes, he got in, that's really how it is. But you'd also be lying if you said nobody was getting tired of seeing him as the leader the entire time, which also includes Samuelson. So a lot of people saw it almost as in mind as if he was having a 5th term, even though it was his first, technically. It's a really unfortunate case because, they're just trying to help the country out. They're trying to make it the best they can make it, and yet it wasn't seen that way.
1974, a leader of another newly made party within the last decade, the Reserved Party, mostly in response to the hectic, chaotic monarchy time period, Larry Fritz Michaels ended up taking over. However, he died in office in June 18th, 1977 from a stroke. His vice president, who ended up becoming the first female president, Sarah Jones, served out the last 6 months and won her own term in 1978. She ended up passing a law that made elections every other year, starting in 1982. This was part and due to Larry Fitzmichael's death, but also because of the Plush Party's long terms and people feeling like they were going on for too long. Now they have pretty frequent chances to get a change, and it forces politicians to be more efficient and effective with change.
I don't know why they decide to make the terms only like every other year. You end up just being really annoying to vote for anyone, which is not how elections should work, to be honest. I ended up getting 2 terms during this thing. I got 2012 and 2014, and one thing I can definitely say is that it's a very big dilemma doing terms every other year. It's great because it really can give people a lot of options. It does make people, it made me really need to make some big decisions very quick, and in a way did make things a little more efficient, but I think it doubles the stress at least on the job. It also sometimes leads to nothing happening, and a lot of people don't like changing their mind on a person that quickly, so it kind of just leads to like half the elections being kind of pointless. And in the end, especially with the big decisions, sometimes you really do need 4 years to make those decisions. A lot of stuff I wanted to do in my first term, I was only barely able to accomplish by my second one. I'm more impressed by the fact that we kept it for almost 40 years. In fact, I think we actually did do a little over 40 years. My God. Yeah, it's kind of a dumb idea. I don't know why they did that, especially because, if it hasn't happened already, the inevitable alien landing will happen, and they will never know who's the president because it keeps changing all the time. Like, what the hell?
And in 1982, we'd see the first of its Plushilius Party leader, Bartholomew Kong, at times has been known as Donkey Kong, but nowadays, Cranky Kong, became the 20th president, and even won the 1984, 1986, and 1988 elections, but ended up losing in 1990 to Joseph Hansel of the Reserved Party, who ended up dying on May 15th of 1990 after he slipped on a banana peel and died.
Not enough people talk about how deadly banana peels really are. I slipped on a banana peel 7 years ago now and broke my neck. I was hospitalized for 3 months. Still to this day, whenever I see banana, I kind of hyperventilate a little bit, and then last year I ended up having and I got diagnosed with PTSD. It's a real killer. You gotta watch out. Those banana peels, man.
His vice president, Foreman Spike, took over. He ended up winning in 1982, but got unpopular and lost to Tochel Toadsworth, who usually refers himself to Toadsworth, being part of the Toads Party. He ended up winning 1994, 1996, 1998, 2000, and 2002. In 2008, Frank DePlushton of the Plush Workers' Party, who was the grandson of John DePlushton, ended up dying on November 6th, 2011. He ended up winning the 2010 election, which meant he died in office. Vice President Olive Oil took over for the final couple of months. Olive Oil suggested to have an early election, but everything went as normal. She lost the election, making her the shortest term president ever. Things got really dark for Plushilia in 2016. Ended up being a dark time for the country. In 2016's election was won by an independent by the name of Jake Paul. He decided to run in the country. He worked the previous few years to get his own visa so he could run for president of the country, and he also even appointed all his Team 10 members high-ranking spots just for a YouTube video. He didn't run afterwards, but he caused a lot of damage to the country, which includes renaming the country Plushilia to Subscribe Country to promote his YouTube channel. On March 15th, 2016, since leaving, there has been 4 different attempts to change it back. On January 8th, 2018, it lost in Parliament 197-3. June 14th, 2019, it would lose 167-33. September 16th of 2021, it lost 121-79. And on April 11th, 2023, it still lost, but it almost went through 104-96. There may be another vote sometime in 2026 or 2027, which could finally free Plushilia from Jake Paul of Basadvark.
Jake Paul. I remember him. I remember when he won the election, and then he posted on YouTube about how he owns a country now, and then he changed the name to promote his channel and his all this stuff. A bunch of city names he changed to Team 10 stuff, just merchandise. It's just like, I couldn't believe what was happening. He ruined my country. It still hasn't even been fixed.
Jake Paul as president was certainly a time, for sure. You'd think in 2 years he wouldn't be able to do that much damage, but, well, it's been a decade, and we still haven't been able to change our name yet back to what it used to be. We've always been Plushilia. I feel for the people from the country of Twitter that have been dealing with the same problem with the last few years. It's truly a tragedy. It really is.
But after that, 2018, Foghorn Leghorn was elected. He did pretty well as president, but shockingly lost to the current president, Kirby Starr, mostly known as Kirby, in 2020 from the Plush Party. He became the 30th president. He has won 2022 and as well as 2024. 2026 will definitely be an interesting time because on October 27, 2025, Kirby removed the 1984 2-year term law and reinstated the 4-year terms, and in quotes, "The country rarely changes their mind in just 2 years. It's just a hassle for citizens to be constantly voting and for us politicians to be constantly campaigning. We need some breaks from it."
Oh, thank God we are changing the terms back. That'll be more convenient, but you'd think we'd be a little more worried because since, Jake Paul was president, which would mean he'd double his length, but he's not going to run again. He's too busy being beaten up in a boxing fight, so who knows, maybe he'll just box his political opponents next time, I don't know.
Plushilia has some pretty interesting relationships with other countries. Since the 1960s, they have had a good relationship with countries like the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, and even Australia, and as well as many more. But one of the biggest relationships come from China. In the 1950s, China started mass-producing plushies, which led to Plushilia having a great relationship with them. No one else really does this in this way. It even tries to pretend that Plushilia doesn't even exist. But China, they never are like that. Plushilia has also been having a growing relationship with Vietnam.
Some people are mad we have good ties with China and Vietnam, but the reality is, they're the only ones that help produce us. And sure, some of these other countries that have good relationships do help market them, and, they do buy from it, but they don't make them really all that much. So it's like, why wouldn't we have a good relationship with these kinds of countries that actively support us and actually recognizes us as countries? Like, so many historians, so many countries just refuse to acknowledge us for some reason. Like what's up with that?
The current population of Plushilia is at 116 million, and it's even gone up another 700k this year. Plush City, being the capital since 1975. Stuffy City is also a notable city, which was the former capital. Other cities like Plushilia, Mushroom Town, Smurf Village, Stuffion, Plushami, Stufferpool, Plush Town, Boneheadia, Yoshiland, Mushroom Kingdom, Green Hill Zone, and as well as Plush Angeles are home to many famous plush citizens. The plush dollar has had its ups and downs in currency. Currently, a loaf of bread costs $10. In 2021, it would have been $60. It's been super fluctuant for many years. In Kirby's presidency, it's gone from $5 up to $60, and now back to one of its lowest at $10. An alternative currency has been monopoly money since 1930 to combat the plush dollar that can't seem to make up its mind. It was made worse in 2008. Monopoly money was no longer being produced to use as currency. Stores slowly stopped accepting it starting in 2015. Only about 8% of businesses accept it as currency today. The plush dollar has a 1, 2, 5, 20, 50, and $100 bill, along with coins at 1 cent, 5, 10, 25, and 50. The $1 bill has Joe Plush, as well as all the coins. The $2 bill has George Stuffington. The 5 has George Washington on it. 10 has Franz Joscherman. 20 has King Joe III, being the king who ended the monarchy. 50 is Papa Smurf. And 100 is World War II legend John DePlushson.
You know, the plush dollar does go all over the place, and it's kind of insane. Sometimes I kind of just don't buy things for multiple months and then just eat expired food, because honestly, sometimes that's better than paying an extra few bucks for some fresh, good food. Like, I just had some spoiled milk. It's been expired for like 4 weeks. You know, it may be killing my insides, but hey, milk is up $1.50 right now. It is, guys, it is $6 for a jug of milk. Isn't that just absolutely insane? It is totally worth killing my body instead. Like, I'm not paying that money. Like, are you kidding me? That is crazy. That is nuts. I'd rather die. Thank you very much. How many times do I gotta say? I think the aliens are inflating our prices. I think they're messing our stock market. They're not. But yes, there is. We just say, "Oh, I have proof." Okay, so show me the proof. No, you don't get to see it.
There's also some notable people to talk about currently around. Wario Big Mac, born April 26, 1998. He ate so many Big Macs, McDonald's named it after him in 2009. Waluigi Big Mac, born October 7th, 2000. The brother of Wario. Mario Meatballs, born March 10th, 1997. He saves the princess and all that. Luigi Meatballs, born on June 12th, 1999. Brother of Mario, is also afraid of ghosts. Bowser Rodney Koopa, or known as Bowser, born on July 2nd, 1996, the King of the Koopas. Batman, who was born on June 28th, 1987. His identity is unknown. The only person that's so far ruled out is Bruce Wayne. Robin, born on February 19th, 2004. His identity is also unknown, and his first name is likely believed to be Robert. Joker, born on September 18th, 1999, presumed. His identity is unknown, and it's believed that his alias has changed on multiple occasions. His first instance as the Joker was recorded on Halloween of 2018 by Jim Gordon. Nicholas Sonner, also known as Sonic, was born on May 15th, 2003. He dropped his full name only to be Sonic. He is very fast. He likes chili dogs and chugging Hershey's chocolate syrup. Miles Per Hour, also known as Tails, was born on December 31st, 2003. He's very intelligent, and he also likes mint candies. Knuckles Smith, born on March 26, 2003. He was given the name Knuckles by his parents because his bones in his knuckle region protruded through his skin and were completely exposed at birth, thus having 18 different surgeries before the age of 1. His parents could only think of his knuckles, which led to it becoming his name. David Ivo Robotnik, also known as Dr. Eggman, was born on June 14th, 1990. He used his middle name, Ivo, starting in 2006. He became Dr. Eggman in 2013 after serving 3 years in prison for tax evasion. He fought Silver from 2013 to 2017. He now fights Sonic since 2017. He likes eggs and also chugging Hershey chocolate syrup. Sock Monkey, born on January 17th, 2004, he's just some guy. Bellamy Eminem, also known as Blue Eminem, was born on September 29th, 1965. He's a very successful businessman worth $489 billion. He had his big startup in the 80s and has lots of power in the government and wants to become president. He started using his nickname in 1989 after being made fun of for his real name. And in 1993, he shortened his last name to Eminem. And shortened his name to what we know now as Eminem, which is the same pronunciation, as he felt nobody would be able to spell his real one. Officially became a billionaire in 2007. He has some kind of share or ownership in 23% of Plushilia's companies. Chicken McFingerpuppet was born on August 11th, 1976. He started as a local newscaster for the Plushilia city, Stephion, in 1995. He officially became a Plushilia newscaster on March 17, 2004, and quickly became famous for his election coverage in 1996, 1998, and 2002, which got him his newscasting position, where he's been considered the most famous news anchor since 2010.
You know, it's a strange little country, but I love it. I love my country. I love it.
This country has given me quite a lot, actually. I got my big startup from In the Wild with Blue Yoshi, and I got to be on various history shows and events and hosts, and I got to meet some great people, and, you know, I can never fully give back to what this country's given to me, and I'll always cherish this place for sure.
You know, of course I really love this place. I mean, why else was I president? But then again, Jake Paul was too, and he certainly didn't. But I actually do. I don't really ever leave this place, ever. So, yeah. I mean, yeah, how can I not like this place? I mean, one of the most famous newscasters in Plushilia history. I mean, how could I not like this place, honestly?
Did you know that Plushilia is actually the 8th largest in spinach imports? You know, I love those imports, those spinach. This country can stop importing everything except for spinach. Still love this country. It's importing what matters, and that's the spinach.
You know, I do like this country quite a bit. You know, it's pretty cool. But I can't help to think that what if it's all like a simulation made by aliens? Because, like, let's be honest, how are we alive? I mean, we have no organs, we have none of that stuff. On top of the fact that no one seems to acknowledge us, like, ever. Like, so many countries ignore us. I mean, like, we're there, and they still ignore us. Like, surely we have to be a simulation created by aliens, right? Right? Am I crazy? Am I crazy? Don't answer that. Don't you better not.
That is all the history that there has been so far in Plushilia. Hopefully we get that name back one of these days. It's been a long history for this country, and it's only gonna get bigger. All I have to say now is thanks for watching, and happy April Fools.
All right, here for the interview. I really want to talk about this country. It's a great place. So where are we gonna start?
Actually, we just finished.
You just finished? Ah, crap!